Hello and welcome back to the beach. Today's session is all looking at the behavioural aspects of budgeting. Now to start with, what we'll do is we'll talk about what a budget is, what it's trying to achieve, then we'll start having a think about the different types and then look at the behavioural impact and how this can change how people operate and how they behave. So to start with, what is a budget? A budget is wow, that's a big definition. So a budget is this idea of a quantitative statement which gives me lots of numbers, which says this is what I want you to do. So a budget is a way of expressing a future plan. So a budget is a way of trying to express a future plan. The reason why we have budgets, well, the first and most important reason is we're trying to coordinate all of the activities of every single different department within our organization so that we are all moving towards the same goal. So we're trying to coordinate activities which will then allow for goal congruence. So the coordination of activities will allow for goal congruence. That's a really important aspect to me. Now, the other thing that happens here is budgets can be seen as a communication method, which means they communicate targets down from the top guys and they also communicate up from the bottom guys what we think we can achieve. So there is potentially two-way communication of targets and potential achieving those targets throughout this entire organization. Budgets also establish a system of control because it allows for corrective action to be taken. Now, control is always useful. If you've done something wrong, you now need to change it. There's the control aspect coming in. And also budgets can be good because it forces people to look to the future. Okay, that sort of makes sense to me. I get that, Ed. Now, what different types of budgets can we have? We have got multitudes of different types of budgets. The key budgets you tend to come across will be top-down and bottom-up budgets, and then also incremental, zero-based, rolling, activity-based, and also feed-forward issues. Oh my word, there's loads. We are only going to be focusing our attention on the behavioural impact, and to allow us to look at the behavioural impact, we're going to focus our attention on top-down versus bottom-up budgeting. And it's all about the behaviour for me here. So we'll have a different session when we look at all these other different types of budgets. But for the main, within this session now, I'm interested in top-down and then bottom-up budgeting. So if I'm thinking about top-down budgeting, what this now means is the budget gets passed from the strategic managers down to tactical managers and then passed on to operational managers. So what happens is, if you are an operational manager, you are given a job to do. So if you are an operational manager, you are basically told this is what your objective now has to be. There is no participation, there is no discussion, there is no two-way communication. This causes me some issues. So the lack of two-way coordination can cause a real problem here. And what this now means is this is really, really good and it's really, really bad. So it's really, really good because it automatically allows for coordination of all activities, which is one of our key objectives. So the coordination works, the goal congruence, where everyone drives towards the same objective, that will work as well. Brilliant. However, there's some bad news here as well. And the big bad news is all about this lack of participation. Now, when I'm looking at this lack of participation, what this now means is if you give me a target and I've had no communication and no say in this whatsoever, that's not my target. I didn't say I could do it. I never agreed to try to do it. Therefore, I will not be motivated to try and do it. So I'm not motivated in the slightest to try and achieve this thing. So from a behavioural perspective, I'm just going to do whatever I feel like. And I'm going to ignore your targets. This now means that the key benefits of having this type of top-down approach of coordination of activities and goal congruence, they now disappear because the operational managers say, I never agreed to do that, therefore I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do whatever I think I can achieve. So that now means that the complete lack of participation means that the budgetary system will now fail in its key objectives. Well, okay, Ed. Well, how about instead of having no participation, we have loads of participation? With loads of participation, we have a bottom-up budgeting structure. And what happens here is the guys at the bottom end of our hierarchy, the operational managers, they all decide what they can achieve, and that now cascades up through my pyramid of management to tactical and then to strategic managers. And what now happens is we tell the strategic managers what we can do on a day-to-day basis. So we tell people what we can now do. Now this is brilliant, because what this now means is everything which is in the budget will be able to be achieved, and I'm now really motivated to make sure I do achieve it. So all of the operational managers become amazingly motivated. So this is really, really good. But it's not all good, unfortunately. If you have a situation whereby there's too much participation, what now happens is the operational managers can be seen as the ones that are driving the company forward. They may not understand the bigger picture. The complete lack of senior management control means that you'll have a lack of coordination, you'll have a lack of goal congruence. It also means that different departments may end up competing with each other, which would be really, really silly. It also means that you can potentially have wastage of resources because the resources are not being used as efficiently as possible. So too much participation destroys the budget and all of the objectives we're trying to achieve as well. Okay, well, that's brilliant. So what do we need? Well, what we need is a bit of a mix and match between both of these. We need an element of participation, but we also need a greater element of control from the senior managers. So the senior strategic managers need to understand exactly what we're trying to do in terms of longer term objectives. They then need to communicate that downwards. So we now need to communicate that downwards to all of the managers so they now understand exactly what's going on. So a top-down approach, but with more participation, can be very, very useful. We need to make sure that we have the commitment from all of our operational managers so that they are now motivated to try and achieve these things. And if they are motivated to try and achieve these things, they're going to do it, which means that we can now hit our key performance indicators and our critical success factors, and therefore hit our strategic objectives and achieve our mission statement. And that's what this game's all about. Okay? If you have too much participation, what now happens is the lack of control from senior managers is a real problem. You have poor decisions being made by inexperienced operational managers, because you tend to find that as you become more experienced, you move up through the management hierarchy, and also you end up wasting resources. So what we really need to see here is a controlled approach, controlled by strategic management, however, having the full participation of operational and tactical managers as well. Remember, the key objective here is coordination of activities to achieve goal congruence, which now means we achieve our KPIs and our CSFs and achieve the mission statement. This can only happen if all managers are working together, and managers will only be working together if we use this budgeting process as a means of communicating with each other. So the key objective of budgeting now should be seen as not just the coordination of activities, but it should be seen as a cooperation and a communication process. That's what's really, really important to me. And that brings me up to the end of this very short session on behavioural aspects of budgeting. Remember, what we're looking to do is try and make sure that everybody does everything in the best interest of the organisation as a whole. And if that happens, happy days. Thank you very much for your time and attention, boys and girls, and I'll see you all back on the beach